Have you ever gone into a space where, without saying any word, everything around you starts to feel a story or starts to tell you a story? That's exactly was my experience at the Design Museum in London, which I visited recently. Especially at this space where you had this user, designer, and maker exhibit. I was not only just a visitor, but at different moments, I was also the user, I was also the designer, and I was also the maker. And you know what? It made me think that what if we approach data also in the same way? We can create so many interactive and immersive experiences for everyone and can empower each and every user. And that is what I'm aiming to do with my talk today of data experience design, where I bring to you this exhibition right here in Porto, but with a twist. It is with a data visualization perspective. So before we begin our sessions, let us understand what is data experience design. So data experience design is the interface between your data visualizations and all the endless possibilities there are there to improve it, to improve the user experience, to create accessibility dashboards, or to create user journeys in which users do not feel lost in your dashboards. They can continue their journeys without any disruption or without any hindrance. So it's all the possibilities to increase the user experience part. And with my session today, I'm going to focus mostly on the designer part, but we will also look at, from a maker perspective, from a user perspective, how this data experience design can be incorporated in also your data projects. Let us now start with the exhibition. Let's start with the first part, is the user who leverage the dashboards that you have created. As a user in this exhibition space, it started to ask this question, what is a good design? It made the visitors critically think about your design choices. From a dashboarding perspective, if you look at it, do you want to give your users dashboards that are like so much information overload that they cannot make any sense out of it? Or do you want to give your dashboard such a way that the users feel consistent about it? They can guide their way through the dashboards without any disruption, continue their user journeys, and also make meaningful information out of it. But now comes the question, what is a good data visualization? A good data visualization equates to data understanding. So whatever is there on your chart, it should have 4 aspects. It should show relevant insight in your data. It should be very, very easy to understand. It should be clearly presented. And it should be very engaging to look at. And if your visualization achieves any of these 4 criteria, you can proceed further of it. If it does not achieve any of those, then you have to get rid of it and start your process all over again. And once you have this good design foundation, you have this important concept of accessibility. So remember that accessibility or creating accessible dashboards is not a choice. It is built on the top of your good design dashboards, and it's a must criteria. Now you ask me, like, why is this all important? Cannot we just start with our projects and implement in any BI tool of our choice? It is important because of 2 concepts. First of all, it elevates your user experience. It guides your users, Whatever information is presented on the dashboard, it is conveyed correctly to the users. Users are not in a guessing situation. And secondly, it helps to make informed decision-making. So the users can see the patterns and trends in the data very quickly. They can make decisions. It also, a good design dashboard avoids the scenario where your users make false decisions or implement false product strategies. And one more thing is that if you have good user experience, your users can make informed decision-making. It aligns automatically with your product or your organization goals that you're trying to achieve with these dashboards. We are done now with the user part who actually leverage your dashboard. let's come together to the heart of this process, the designer, who will actually conceptualize the dashboards. And in this space, it was very important to establish what is the purpose of the visualization. Like, why are you developing this visualization in the first place? And in this exhibition space, there were two main themes, like what are the purpose of our choices, whatever design choices we make, what is the main intention behind it? And secondly, play, or giving users a chance to try out your dashboards before implementing them is like the highest form of human expression. So now let us see how you can incorporate these two themes, like the purpose and play, also in your data projects. Coming together with purpose. So let us, before we implement anything, start by putting together a brief. And in this brief, you have to answer 3 questions. First question is why? So why are you building this visualization in the first place? Second is who, like who are you building this visualization for? Who is your end audience? And what? So what do you want your users to think, feel, and do after they see your data visualization or after they see your dashboards? So these 3 questions help you to establish, the purpose of your visualization. And only when you have answered these 3 questions, like why, what, and who, you are ready to move to the next space, which is also the sketching. And what is meant by sketching is that you need to create some wireframes that can be tested by the users. And this sketching is always like an iterative process. Traditionally, it is done by a pen and paper, but if you are working in a team environment or with a more collaborative environment, it is very necessary to use whiteboarding tools or prototyping tools like Figma, which I have shown here. And in this sketch and show, always make it iterative, collect user feedback, and then feed it again into your dashboards and start refining your charts. You can create very low fidelity prototypes like this wireframes, or you can create high fidelity prototypes, also called as, you incorporate this play. So you give the users a chance as a dashboard simulation to test out the dashboards before you implement them in any of your BI tool of choice. So after you have done sketching and after your sketches or your prototypes have the correct message that you want to depict, it's then when you start with the building process in any of the tool that you selected. And now I have, in this design process, you need to have some recommendations in place. So I have some design tips for you which you need to consider while designing your charts. Let's start with the first one, which is very high level to low level. So whenever you are designing dashboards, consider high level visualizations at the top, like a map maybe, which has several data points. And give the users a chance to filter it down. So do not pack all information in a particular chart. When the user has selected particular data points, is then when you show them very detailed visualizations at the end. So always arrange it in a very information hierarchy, like a high level to low level, where users can choose if they want a high level overview or they want to do a detailed analysis. So always give these options to the user. Secondly, we have the topic of white space. So white space is like the oxygen that a dashboard needs to breathe. So have it in a very optimal way, such that all your charts are very well aligned. You have this white space and you do not have dashboard overcrowding. You do not fit 2 or many charts in a dashboard. Try to split it up with navigation so you have like a consistent, and also the user is not overloaded with information. Thirdly, we have like avoid too many squeeze categories. So do not fit so many categories into one chart. Try to make it or split it into 2 charts, or at times, it's also better to select a different chart of your choice. You do not pack everything in one chart. Next, we have proximity. So you need to group together the elements. So proximity in a dashboard means that whatever KPIs or elements are there that are related to a particular theme are at one place in the dashboard, and they are not scattered all over the place. If you prevent this, you do not give hard time to the user. The user can actually find the information very correctly. He can see where the information is located, also can see, okay, maybe these are the KPIs related to this theme. It will help in the analysis. So always group relevant information together in your dashboard. And last tip which you have is intuitive titles, labels, and markers. Also try to use maybe dynamic titles, like you change the filters and you change the title. So it's very easy for the user to map like what filter they have selected and what is the chart actually depicting, what are the data points the chart is showing. Try to use labels, try to use markers, and this all, why it is important, because it helps to improve the legibility or the readability of your charts, and the users can also make more data out of it or make much more sense out of it. So these general tips are very necessary when you consider or start designing visualizations at your first place. I spoke very smallly about selecting a different charts in case you have too many squeezed categories. But now is the more important question, like how do you select a chart? How do you select which chart is for which type of data visualization? And the answer lies in precision. So you need to first think like how precise you want your data points to be. Do you want it to be most accurate, or do you want it to be least accurate? If you want your charts to be most accurate, then select charts which encode this information, like which encode information about position, encode information about length. And in these scenarios, you have charts like line charts or bar chart, which actually depict this information very accurately. But if your precision is not on a most accurate level, it is on a least accurate level. Maybe you want to show area information, or you want to play with saturation and hues, then these charts are different. You can have scatter plots, you can have tree maps. So answer what is your precision, and then select your chart accordingly. And now, one more thing is that it also comes with practice, because there are so many charts available. You need to work on something called as your visual vocabulary. So here is a very high-level poster by the Financial Times. You can just, it is in a very high resolution available on the internet. You can just make a copy of it and hang it in your workspace. It gives you a very nice overview, like for example, for correlation, what are the chart types? If you want to show deviation, what are the chart types? So it would be very easy for you to just select it, and I would totally recommend you to just make a poster out of it, print it, and hang it in your workspace. And this expanding of the visual vocabulary, it takes time. So after next time, you don't have to also look at it. You automatically know, okay, this is what I am aiming to achieve, and this is my correct chart type. Now let's look into something that is very important. That's called as a data ink ratio. And what is this data ink ratio? It is the ratio of the ink that is used to convey meaningful information in your chart to the total ink that is present or used up by your chart. And now what do I mean by meaningful information? So for example, you have legends that convey some meaning. You have some labels that convey some meaning. And non-meaningful information means maybe you have background, you have special effects, you have unnecessary grid lines. They all just add up to the non-meaningful information. And in a good chart, you need to make this ratio as close to 1 as possible. It will also reduce, the cognitive overload. If you see at this chart, you will think that, okay, this chart is not a good type because it just creates an information overload. It is not easy to access or not a good overview chart. Maybe if you do some simple modifications, like you remove the backgrounds, you remove any special effects, you start direct labeling it, you reduce maybe the colors. And you can see these all small steps, it helps to make this ratio, the data ink ratio, close to 1 as possible. And if you do these steps, you will just see a drastic difference, like what was the chart before and what the chart is now. It has a very consistent, a sleek feel. So you need to make this ratio in your chart as close to 1 as possible. And now let us speak about a very important topic, the choice of colors. Do not try to overuse colors. Maybe try to use 2, 3 colors and start to vary on their intensity. And gray is a very, very powerful color. So harness the power of gray in your data visualizations. And whenever you are creating or selecting colors, select in such a way that you are selecting accessible colors. You adhere to what is the contrast ratio for text and graphics, what is the prescribed ratio. Also, before using them in your dashboard, there are different types of tools available on the internet that will check your accessibility, that will check the contrast ratio of your color palette. Try to use them before. Try to simulate them for different type of color blindness. And after that, you made a selection, then you are good to go with that color palette of your choice. Sometimes, companies also have like a branding color palette, and they have a very dark color. So what you can do in this way, because it's very difficult now to change the entire design palette, of course, you can propose it, but when it becomes difficult, you can just reduce the intensity so that instead of making it dark, you reduce into a warmer colors. So colors are often an overlooked aspect, but a very important role they play in data visualizations. And lastly, I would like to tell you about, Gestalt principles. So these are the design principles in which how the human brain thinks. If you understand, there are a lot of principles, but there are mostly 6 which are relevant for data visualizations. It will help you to understand like how a user perceives different knowledge or different information that is shown to them. And once you understand them, it can help you to curate the different elements that are there on the data visualization. For today, I have selected one principle which I can tell you about. It's the principle of similarity. If you just take a look at this picture, so without any giving you additional context or without I saying anything, you automatically understand that there are 3 groups. And because of the color coding, you automatically understand that maybe the color black has different association in different groups. Maybe these elements share some similar properties in between them. So without giving any additional concept, we try to make sense of whatever is shown to us. And that's the principle of similarity. You can also leverage it in your dashboards in a way that, so for example, this is a visualization. You can use different shapes, size, colors. For example, here are 3 categories like business, education, and communication. And because of the shape, because of the colors, because of their location, you automatically understand that there are these 3 groups, and the data points are in a group, they share some similar properties. So in such way, you can leverage these principles or these cognitive principles in your dashboards. Now let us move on to the last persona of this data visualization journey, which is also the maker who builds these dashboards. And in this exhibition space, it was all about evolution of technology. It focused more on the Moore's law, which tells you the rate at which the technology is growing, and the rate at which it is growing, it is like accelerating. And why I'm showing you this here, because now with the introduction of Gen AI, our visualization workflows are going to change. So our work as data and design experts is also going to change. Here is like an example workflow. So for example, you are a data and design expert. You need to see or you need to find out what are the tasks that you usually do. And you need to see the potential areas where you can collaborate with Gen AI. So for example, in this workflow, maybe I start with workshop. Here I can make use of the FigJam AI to create my workshop templates in Figma. It goes all the way to creating dashboards with the help of Power BI Copilot or creating metrics with the help of Tableau Pulse. So you need to identify what are the different aspects in your workflow and where you can collaborate with Gen AI. And remember always, you need to put yourself at the center because it is always about, a human and AI partnership. It's always about critical thinking. Because design is such a process, it's always about conversation, it's always about collaboration. And this data experience design is always a work in progress. So as I am ending towards the end of my session, also towards the end of this exhibition year, I would like you to give 5 top data and design books, which I would recommend from my side to continue on your learning journey. And thank you, everyone, for making it here, for gracing my session with your presence. And now I open the floor to questions.